G'day everyone, this is Rangadad. Not financial advice, this is just my daily morning market scan. Um, yeah, hopefully it's of benefit to you guys too. Um, this pullback on Bitcoin's, it's not happening quite as quick as I thought it might, but I've gone back and have a look at the last cycle and some interesting stuff to compare to and potentially predict where we're going next and just how far this pullback will come and how long it will last. Um, just realized I don't, between when I actually write the title of these videos and when I do the video, I normally forget about the title that I wrote and I very rarely actually answer the question that I pose in there. Feel free to ask questions in the chat if you have them. I probably won't see them before the video is finished, but see how we go. All right, Bitcoin, it does look like it's rolling over. Stochastic momentum's ticking to the downside. Just going to extend this out. There is a little bit of a sort of base that we can kind of look at here on stochastic momentum where we want to see this thing really turn around early, or we want to see it drop quickly and bounce from the bearish control zone. BBWP is quite low as well, so that's still got a little bit. If that resets a little bit more, that's just showing you that the next move is going to be pretty impulsive, as it sort of did back in this area as well. So we had a bit of sideways chop, momentum sort of reset a little bit, and then obviously we had a little bit of a fake out, but that was the break of the previous high as well and the retest. So yeah, it's still looks likely that we come back down here. If we close today, which is still 4 hours away, but if we close today below that value area high, then I would expect us to come back down at least into the 91.5 sort of area. Probably get a little bounce there intraday, but then still kind of expecting over the next few days probably to hit the bottom of this box. Not necessarily right at the bottom, and I'll get into why in a second, but you know, that's still a worst case scenario for me in this pullback. But the value area, like the high volume pivot here, is potentially all we're going to get. Okay, so let's have a look. I'm just going to go back. Interestingly, previous bull run, right? I don't think we're at this pullback yet. I think this is going to probably happen more around 150k. I think we're more in this region here, and same time of year as well. So seasonality is a big thing, and this is sort of interest because it's done something pretty similar. It did retest the pivots on like just that top pivot on the CPR just at the start of the November, and then it obviously shot up, got to the third one and pulled back. And then from the open of December, again, it pulled back right down into the second pivot and then bounced off that, which is also very close to this cloud around the 50 EMA from the Traders Reality Indicator, which is a pretty good spot for it to bounce off. And obviously the sellers were trying pretty hard then, but the bulls were definitely in control of that at that point. Now, that happened, that pullback lasted 10 days and was 10.8%. And then obviously December, we ended up coming up and we hit that third pivot and we actually blasted through it. So December ended up going absolutely nuts, and January didn't even hit the pivots at all. So I don't know that this will happen exactly the same, obviously, but this is it's looking very similar at this stage to what happened in 2020. So just on that alone, what I also wanted to point out on this last bull run was this 50 EMA and the cloud was very much a pullback target. And the other thing is when we tend to see Bitcoin rally up on the daily, you get after a big push and a couple of vector candles, you tend to find that it will pull back into the level of that initial pullback after the vector candles. So here you've got two vectors and then it sort of stops with still a green candle, but a bit more action to the downside than the previous candles. And then we pull back into that level and move away. It's probably more important on these bigger pullbacks here. So you can see here, run up, vector, big vector candle with a wick to the downside. And then it still ran after that, but the pullback ends up coming into that same sort of level. And that's sort of fairly typical. Same sort of thing here, vector candles, pullback, still goes on another run, and then the pullback comes back into this level. This is sort of where those initial sellers get interested in it again, okay, as buyers again. And as you can see, back into the 50 EMA. And the 50 EMA is probably the more important thing. The other thing is on on the cyclic RSI, obviously we start making lower highs on the cyclic RSI as we're going up, and this gives us a pretty good indication that we've hit the top. Definitely going to be on the lookout for this sort of pattern on the daily, and then obviously you want to get out pretty well on these turns. So once we're in a full flung bull market, actually, if you see divergence on the chart between these peaks on your daily RSI, it's kind of when you want to start taking some profits. Like literally as that ticks down, not a bad time to take some profits. It's still hard because this runs up. Obviously, do you take profit here? Do you take profit there? Kind of got to look at it in concert with other things. But it's important to sort of notice that, after a big daily candle up, we don't necessarily just pull straight back. There's normally some more upside where retail gets involved and just keeps buying it up. But generally, the market maker's done this and he's happy to let it run, and because he's essentially hitting all the asks into that point. So he's bought a heap of Bitcoin and he wants to get rid of it at a higher price, effectively. So yeah, interesting that it pulled back into this pivot here as well, the monthly pivot. So it actually hit that right at the end of February there, and then ran up. So yeah, 50 EMA is a big thing. Breaking the 50 EMA on the daily is going to be pretty important. But also just watching the cyclic RSI. So obviously I'll be looking at that, and I'll let you guys know when I think there's some funny business going on and looking for downside. Even the same sort of thing here, like these pivot points are pretty important. Once we clear them, chances are we're going to run pretty hard. But when we come over here, I mean, this is 11 days I've got there. I probably should move it back a day. So that would be 10 days. and that is the daily pivot. The second daily pivot, like the middle one, monthly pivot sits right at that level. So about what is it? 80, about 87.5, I think. Should be able to read that. Yeah, 87,660, which I think I mentioned last video anyway. So important level, that one. Wicks down below that are possible. We didn't wick down below that in 2020. That was the bottom of the wick, and that may be the bottom of the wick in this case as well. But also, the interesting thing is if we do come into that over the 10 days, the 50 EMA is going to be coming pretty close into that same sort of level. So there's a fair bit of confluence around that. If we get out this far, the cloud might be up around the first pivot level. So we could sort of go sideways and that might be it in terms of about 92K. That is certainly a possibility, but I think that's less likely at this stage. And just know that typically this RSI will come down and break this bottom band. And then sort of we'll have a bit of a flush at that stage. Typically, once that breaks that bottom band, it tends to be moving pretty quick. So, that's something to keep in mind. As you can see here, basically gets close, breaks that bottom band on a pretty big flush. Breaks the bottom band, goes on a big run. Not expecting a big run like that, but that's just sort of what happens. Same thing here. Breaks that bottom band and then flushes over a couple of days. So just, I guess, keep that in mind before you take any longs. If you're building a low leverage sort of position over the long term, then obviously now's not the worst point, but I'd probably be starting that around 92 personally, and adding to it in a pretty big way around 87. And then, yeah, I think that 85 is pretty well the lowest I would expect it to come. And there is some liquidity down there, so it is a possibility. All right. The other thing I was just curious of, we'll get rid of these. So the rainbow wave, interestingly, don't know whether this will hold it up. I haven't actually checked that. I'll check that now. On the last cycle, we were actually below that band, so we did have a little pullback, didn't come close to that band. Pretty similar to what we've got now, actually. So yeah, that's another interesting level, would be the top of the orange band for the next run up, which I think is sitting, wouldn't be surprised if we're hitting sort of 160-ish for a pullback. 150, 160 is kind of, honestly, 150 is kind of my target, but yeah. All right. I'll get off that. So the other thing is the equal weight is behaving a bit differently to the actual NASDAQ and the Qs. The NASDAQ itself is pretty close to closing on a new high close anyway, 21,106. Yeah, it's at the moment, if we close here or above, it's going to close on a new high. Momentum's up. BBWP is actually ticking to the upside, so this could run. That is a possibility, but I'll just find the chart with the actual Huh. I thought I had a chart here with trend lines on it. That's weird. Oh no. Where's my trend lines? I got too many versions of NAS. Anyway, I'll do that later. But yeah, the fact that the equal weight is pulling back a little bit suggests the Mag 7's back in business, I'd say. And have a quick look at the Mag 7. Yeah, so the Mag 7's holding it up at the moment. They're getting a pretty good run. BBWP's up. So it looks like money's flowed back into the big guys a little bit today. They were underpriced compared to the run in the rest of the market. But yeah, the equal weight not going with it, just think it's more a symptom of there's a lot of money flow across different assets at the moment. Like the big guys are moving money around. They're getting small wins here and there, looking for undervalued stuff relative to like relative positions between different sectors and stuff. So I'd expect that to continue for the next week or so anyway. But yeah, still grinding higher. Sentiment was actually bearish last week, which is interesting, but it's probably why we're grinding higher. It's all driven by options market, and if everyone's bearish, then the options tend to be tend to put walls in, so the price doesn't want to go down. Yeah, it looks like equal weight is actually peaking at the moment, so this could be the first sign that we will actually get a pullback. They've probably sucked in enough, like they've probably killed enough shorts in here that the shorters are dead, and then they'll actually bring it back. Not expecting a huge move, but that's suggesting we will get a move at least. IWM. Oh, the other thing, the advanced decline line is actually pulling back a little bit. Interesting that this seems to be different on different charts, because this references the code behind this actually just references. I think it's the S&P 500. I did have a look at that. Can't remember now. Anyway, it does reference one particular ticker, and it's this ticker that it's referencing. ADVN. Anyway, side quest there. But yeah, the fact that that's pulling back is again kind of suggesting that yeah, we're close to a pullback on the market. IWM's looks like it wants to do the same thing. Bearish divergence on stochastic momentum on IWM as well. And BBWP is still high, so IWM could pull back a little bit harder. It could come in and close this gap even, which will be interesting, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes at this level here. I think this is probably going to be support at this stage. Might actually move that up. I have a feeling that there's going to be some support around there as well. So this is put call ratio on Russell. Let's just have a quick look at that. So it's actually fairly low, and it looks like it's ticking up. That's interesting. Maybe the Russell's just coiling, trying to fake people out. Could be coiling to break. Let's do the proper IWM. Could be coiling to break this level here, which I think was the all-time high. Yeah. So it may actually just bounce around a little bit here. I mean, it's not looking good. It's given some mixed signals there. I haven't checked honestly to see if put call ratio on the Russell is actually worth looking at. So I just found it and put it on there. Take that with a grain of salt, what I just said. XLI, yeah, it looks like it wants to pull back as well. So overall, equal weight, XLY, XLP ratio is showing some topping signs. Got divergences here to the downside. BBWP is actually above the signal line, so chances are that comes down as well. So it's looking like a correction over the next couple of weeks on the general stock market. KRE is already doing part of its correction. I wouldn't go against this at the moment. The only thing is BBWP's retesting that signal line. If it breaks this EMA here, then I would suspect that it will drop reasonably quickly and fill that gap. There should be a lot of support around that 59 level. And that will actually look pretty nasty, I would think, in terms of it will be a fake out below that trend line, I think. If it keeps dropping after that, then there's something bigger going on. ITB, yeah, so home construction and home builders aren't looking super healthy. This could end up being a W pattern though. It's not a normal one, I would say, but if it finds support around that sort of level there, the 119, then a bounce in home builders could actually suggest that we are going to get a decent run to the upside. DJR Gold's dropping back a little bit as well, so that's signaling a bit of weakness. This one here is interesting. So DJT Gold's kind of going the other way. Could just be a seasonal thing where transport is starting to ramp up into the Christmas time, but interesting that that's pushing to the upside when DJI is dropping relative to gold. Just hasn't dropped as much as gold. What the? Anyway, VIX. Have I got the right DJT there? Pretty sure I did. Anyway, VIX is still low. It's going to spike soon, surely. Hasn't turned yet, but the VIX can turn pretty quick too. So skew. Yesterday's skew was still to the upside, so no skew crush yet. Today will be interesting. I suspect that the skew will come down today. That'll set people up for the next day. Interesting, DAX has broken that trend line. So DAX is sort of leading away at the moment. Going to bring this down here. It's not a bad little channel there for DAX. DAX is kind of suggesting the German economy isn't as bad as what people are making out that it is. So that's kind of bullish overall for markets, but it'll be interesting to see this is just a fake out of that trend line. Like we did fake out here. Like there wasn't really a trend line there at that time, but yeah, if the DAX pulls back inside this trend line, then it we'll probably come back into this level. Chinese market actually getting a bit. It still hasn't broken this level, but BBWP is coming off a pretty low level here, and stochastic momentum is reaching for the bullish control zone. So yeah, it looks like this is a move to the upside. Once we sort of clear, what's that level there? Once we clear about 19,800, then you can be a bit more confident that that's going to the upside. But a closure above the 50 moving average is pretty good anyway. It has found some resistance there along the way. UK 100. I'd expect some pullback here. It's coming up into resistance. Interesting, if that's a Wyckoff accumulation, that could run pretty hard. Kind of looks like an accumulation more than a distribution at the moment. Japanese market, pretty similar. It's looking okay, coming off low BBWP as well, and stochastic momentum's definitely to the upside. So at least a retest of 42k, I think, is on the cards. Recover these vector candles that are up in here. And to be honest with you, I'd probably expect it to break that into the new year. This is the sort of bubbly markets that we're kind of looking for. We need a decent run up in the markets before we get the next crash. We're not going to crash from these sort of levels, I don't think. There's not enough euphoria and FOMOing in. TLT, struggling to get through that 50, but may even pull back. Interesting. High yield junk is pulling back. Bond indicators pulling back a little bit as well. Although momentum's still to the upside. That'll be interesting. It's funny, some markets look like they're going okay compared to the US market, but I do expect the US market to pull back a little bit. This here would be a good point for a bounce somewhere around here on the 2-year and the 10-year. 10-year in particular is coming off the 200 EMA. Low stochastic momentum, BBWP is high. I'm expecting this to go on a run up, which is probably going to cause the stock market to pull back. So copper finally got a bid, but slammed into resistance at the 200 EMA. Get rid of that now. That failed, obviously. Interesting that it hasn't managed to actually close a bit higher than that. Still haven't finished the daily candle. If we finish it above $4.21, then I do expect copper to break out, but it's on decent volume, not huge compared to this in here, but it's on decent volume. And the Chinese market, if it's going to go on a run, then it would make sense for copper to do so as well. Uranium stocks are probably worth a buy at the moment if you're looking at them. Not financial advice, just the market. It's potentially going to put in a gigantic W here, double bottom, big W pattern. If this market does this, then it's got a long way to run. Like, you're talking targets of $93 from the low of sort of 77 that it's at the moment. So that's looking kind of bullish. Let's have a look at gold. Gold, not really. Still not looking great. Little green day here, but looks like it's still got some sellers in there, just based on the wick to the upside, which we haven't closed this daily yet. if we don't close above that yellow moving average there, which is sitting at 2006.44, then I would expect it to still pull back a little bit more. As I said yesterday, back into this level here is the target. Just put a box there. Somewhere in this area. Which would be interesting. If that pulls back as the general market is pulling back, that's kind of not what I would expect, but it looks possible at the moment. Silver actually looks like it's going to go on a run. Just have a quick look. Yeah, gold's still momentum's to the downside on gold. Could flip flop in here in the middle of the range. So yeah, it may not pull back all the way, but the silver versus gold looks like it'll be moving to the upside pretty well. Yeah. So silver's the play at the moment over gold. But look at that. Oil's getting a bid finally. It does need to go on a decent run here. I think this could be the start of the recovery on oil. Dixie, again, bouncing a little. If yields are going up, then I would expect Dixie to go up. And yeah, Japanese yen to pull back, euro to pull back. Euro didn't really run as much as Japanese yen, so it looks like whatever unwind has happened recently in the carry trade, if it has happened, it seems like it. The fact that Japanese yen gained ground on the US dollar way more than what the euro did suggests that it was a bit of carry trade stuff. Didn't really affect the market too much at this stage. Yeah. Oh, interesting. We've got a new read here. Finally, that was the September read. So Australian average house prices are still heading up. So no real indicator there of the pending sort of economic correction, I guess. You want to see that kind of roll over a little bit. We don't have data back to 2008, unfortunately. We do for the US market, though. And where was it? Just here. So the US market sort of really rolled over pretty hard last time into the GFC, and it's already showing signs of weakness at the moment. So if this doesn't tick up soon, and we finally got another read on that, but if this doesn't sort of tick up here, like a quick pullback and tick up like it did in here, then that's your first sort of indicator that there's something going to happen relatively soon, within a year or so at least. Yeah. When's that? December 2008. So credit was spiking into the recession. And we got credit spiking into another likely recession. Debt balance on auto loans, that doesn't, oh, it does go back away. Again, yeah, it flattened off before the GFC. We haven't seen that yet, the auto loans, but percentage of stocks above 50-day moving average. Had a bit of an update yesterday. Again, kind of expect this to pull back today. I'm not going to worry about the big guys. They're all sort of meh. And I think we're not going to get a lot of movement until sort of the end of the month, end of the week, and we get a bit more of the news coming through. So expect any amount of news to actually just pull back the market this week. Stellantis is still struggling. ASX 200 had a bit of a pullback today. still, I mean, it is pretty overbought here. It probably needs a bit of a correction too, probably back into 8,300 or thereabouts. USDT, sorry, stable coins versus BTC is sort of ticking up as well. So again, I expect that to pull back a little bit, but not a huge amount before BTC's next run. ETH BTC longs. So they are closing a shit ton of ETH BTC longs at the moment. Nearly half them have closed. That's an interesting metric there. I'm just going to have a look at ETH versus BTC. So these guys are either, it's like they're just happy to recover some money at the moment because they've been stacking these longs for ages. They literally started selling as soon as the pump started, or closing their longs anyway. Was that 23rd of November? Yeah, 23rd of November. They had like a little mini pump and they started closing their longs, and they've been closing them the whole time. Literally, where we only got to a point where they would have been in profit if they opened them at point oh, what day was that? Sorry, 23rd of October. So literally, it's only these ones here that have been in profit. I'd kind of expect this to base. Interesting. These guys are taking a hit. That doesn't bode well for Ethereum, to be honest. Ethereum longs are still building, which does bode well for it, but wow. Ethereum is the forgotten cousin at the moment. No one's shorting it. It's just no one's interested in longing it as much as what they have in previous cycles. Like, just look at the amount of longs. We're at all-time lows. This is on Bitfinex, obviously, but yeah, that's interesting. BTC USD longs is still dropping. So these guys still aren't reaccumulating yet. I want to see this starting to tick back up before, or at the same time that we're reaching those levels, those pivot levels that we mentioned earlier. Bitcoin dominance is still dropping. Again, suggesting that there's still some room to move in the alts, but as we know, alts are kind of all over the shop at the moment. It's really specific coins that are running. Ethereum, interesting pullback. We hit that high volume area. We've pretty well recovered the middle of this vector candle anyway. I would expect Ethereum to bounce from here. If not, you're talking back into these levels here, which is around 3,200. I don't see it going there really, but stochastic momentum is to the downside. Although BBWP is dropping, so do we get a bigger pullback? Not necessarily. A closure above this channel here is still a good closure. What you want to see is basically a move back above the high of this candle, which is 3,675. A daily sort of closure above that, I think this would be the bounce. And we would get another leg up. So one to watch out for, but at the moment it's kind of just trying to pick what's going on with the alts. I'll show you that in a sec. So CME still elevated. Bit of a doji on CME today. It'll be interesting to see where this closes, but I mean, it's postured to the downside for sure, but it's not looking like it wants to go as big to the downside as the rest of the market. And it's about what, $1,000, $800 higher at the moment. So yeah, what I wanted to sort of point out was just how random the altcoins are moving. Looks like we're starting to move into some of the smaller ones. Like Mudeng yesterday got a massive bid. It went up 67% in one day, open to close, and the swing was even bigger than that. It tapped the 50 EMA, and I'm just going to measure that. I don't know exactly how far that swing was. The guys that bought the bottom of that would be pretty happy. They just doubled their money in a day. So 120% in a day. Whereas like some coins were negative yesterday. It's pretty random. So it's kind of one where if you're looking at alts, try and find ones that are basing. So WIF actually looks like it's ready for a run. Stochastic momentum looks like it might be turning to the downside. But when this thing runs, it's probably going to go on a pretty big run because BBWP is low at the moment. You just want to see this stochastic momentum shift to the upside as BBWP is increasing. If that happens, WIF is probably not a bad buy. And yeah, not financial advice, but that's kind of what it's looking like. Carve, still not much interest in this. It's a fairly new coin. It'll have its day, I think, in the next leg up. Bytes is having a good run. So Nero, whoa, that's an interesting pullback. It's like Nero, someone wanted to pump it, but they're just like, nah, not yet. You got to wait your turn. Whereas Pol, which is Polygon, it's having its turn at the moment. Pepe, again, it sort of looked like it was wanting to break out, but got slammed. Some of these may pull back a little bit harder. A pullback into this 50 EMA would be a good buying opportunity, I think. Just there, it's kind of, it's risky. Unless you're just buying in it with no leverage. It's not a bad point. Doge, this is a dull market. Again, I don't think Doge is going to be a big winner in this cycle from here. Like $1 Doge is like a, how many of these things are there? It's like 100 billion of them or something. So yeah, if that's $100 billion market cap, that just, I don't know. Seems nuts. Could be wrong. Could go to $2-3. I don't know. There's too much weighting of this on news, and it's always been like that. Like whenever Elon friggin' tweets about it, it goes nuts. It's a hard one to trade. Probably not a bad one if you had bought it at the lows. Not really a trade though. Litecoin's having a pullback at the moment on volume as well, so it might settle down for a little bit. SHIB's having the pullback as well. Just looking for ones that might be ready to run. What you want to do is not get in after this sort of pump unless there's clear indications that it's going to go a lot higher. And at the moment, like this one here, we're coming into resistance. Now, this is a pretty big accumulation zone. If this breaks, and so BNB may actually be a reasonable buy here, because if this breaks, then potential target is around 920. Where did it get to? Is this all-time high region? Yeah, okay. So this is the kind of thing you're looking for is, okay, have we been coiling for a while? What's the target if we do break? And whilst you're sort of buying at the highs on this, if it does pull back a little bit, even into these sort of moving averages here, then it's probably not a bad buy. So over the next couple of months, that's not a bad gain for a reasonably large coin with a decent history and a decent backing. XRP is having its pullback. Yeah, FTM. See, FTM's had its run. Gala's had it. Well, Gala's probably potentially got a little bit to go, but it is probably going to have some resistance around here. That's a support and resistance level that it's at the moment. But again, these are just the pre-pumps, I think. After Christmas, I'm expecting more out of some of these. Flows having its run. Glimmer. A lot of these are coming into resistance levels at the moment. Quant. I do. Or QNT, sorry. I did like that. I do have some of that in my super. It's a good run. I think this will be a good one, as I've mentioned before. That one's already had its run. That one's run. Like some of these, if you're going to hold for 6 months or so, not a bad buy-in, but I do expect them to pull back a little bit. There's so many coins out there that haven't run yet, or that will pull back and give you another opportunity. Ooh, Ape might go pretty well. I've got a little bit of that as well. It might try and break this level. It'd be interesting to see tomorrow if it's found resistance there. Cedar's had a decent run. One. Yeah, most of these are coming into resistance. You're hard pressed buying them at this level. Although that one, Filecoin coiling around this level is interesting. It's recovered pretty well. Yeah, I guess this is a kind of resistance level. Might need a little pullback before it goes again. Rose, yeah. Whoa. Tron looks like the winner today. Where did Tron get to last cycle? It's already beat last cycle. Yeah, Tron's an interesting one. It was a real darling in the bear market too, so trying to find a top on that's going to be interesting. ADA, I'd expect some resistance here. That was a previous support level. XLM coiling as well. Geez, XLM was a good buy. Basic attention token, Sushi, Coty. Yeah, a lot of these have had a decent run, which means Bitcoin dominance could be finding a base soon, actually. But certainly over the next 10 days or somewhere within that 10 days, I'd expect BTC dominance to base off and then go on another run. Jesus. Pretty much if I can throw a rock at the moment and you'll hit something that's probably already had its run. But it's just good to remember this. Whilst they all seem to be going separately, the money is flowing across the majority of them. Like no one's really been left out of this yet. Even Wink's getting a bid. Comp. It's just that the money shifted at different times. And that's the thing. It's not It's definitely not full bull run like last time yet, just because that movement is very defined and it's only a few coins that run on any given day. Whereas previously you would get 20, 30 coins doing stupid moves every day once you get into that frothy, real bull run period. Yeah, probably be waiting for some pullbacks. Find your favorites, find some tech that you like, wait for the pullbacks and jump in. Look for key levels like this here on IMX. So $1.80 is probably not a bad level if it gets there. Veracity, but if you've got a long-term horizon, most of these are going to have more upside. Just might have to be patient. UFO is interesting. That one could get a more of a run in the short term. Probably in the next day or two, looking at this. Momentum's still to the downside, but BBWP is resetting as well, so might pick up a few UFO. UFO did me real well in the last bull run. I got in cheap and sold right near the top. This one here, UOS, I'm not sure what this is like as a coin, but it hasn't really had much of a run yet. Certainly not compared to some of them. EYR hasn't had as much of a run as what I thought it would either. It's at a resistance level here, so if it breaks that, it's probably going to go on a pretty decent tear. Not a bad level for BYR. That one on. Gains on these things are just nuts. Some of these dead coins from the last run, I'm surprised some of them are still even a thing. That's what I'm concerned about, is aping into stuff. You got to be careful that it isn't just people pumping price and dumping it on you. Kind of still want something that has an active community, an active build going on. That's at least my way of looking at it. Yeah, I think very interesting. All right, that'll do for today. Sorry, no, I won't. Short-term time frame. Still working on this, so don't pay too much attention to this, but it looks like we get a little bit upside. We may actually crack the 200 EMA on the 15-minute, but oh, yeah, I don't know about that. There's a lot of liquidity in here. I didn't even do most of these, but there was a bit of sell liquidity still coming in, even though we have dropped here on the hourlies. Still expecting more downside from that, but looking at the recent liquidity, you know, there is a fair bit in here. I don't think it'll leave that very long, but we could actually sweep these levels first, at least some of it. Whether it just puts in a lower high, it just takes this little stuff here before moving down again. Have to wait and see, but on the weekly, still a fair bit here to clean up, I think. CoinAnk is, interestingly, there are more orders to the downside. Like some of these orders coming in here are pretty decent now. Whereas the shorts, pretty much everyone's still waiting for it to get up here to short it. There's a few coming in just above this high here as well now. So it'll probably chop around at the high before it breaks into the 100K region when it does get back up there. But for the time being, I think this sort of confluence around that 90K level, 80 88 to 90K is pretty big, especially over that time frame. It's just going to be choppy. As you can see, there's big moves in both directions. Lots of liquidity flowing around, so they're just going to be taking what they can from the market at the moment. All right. Yeah, at the moment, looks like a little bit of upside potential. I'd expect it to sort of top out around this level here, just recover these vectors and then move down again. Not necessarily straight away, but that's definitely a potential if it does push up and get into that region. But what settings have I got on this too? Yeah. 30 settings, probably more realistic. So we could be getting close to the top here as well. Okay. So yeah, look for breaks of that 200. If it breaks the 200, then the first target's 97,350. But at the moment, there's going to be a bit of a magnet down here at 93.5. At which point, I'd say we still sort of trudge sideways and down. All right, catch us later.